In 1979, at King's Dominion in Doswell, Virginia, the park unveiled a giant mountain called the Lost World in the Safari Village section. The giant artificial mountain would house a number of attractions, including Land of the Dews, Voyage to Atlantis, and the Time Shaft. Over the next few years, these rides would be rethemed and renamed, with one of the most notable being when Land of the Dews would be rethemed to the Smurfs and the entire mountain would become known as Smurf Mountain. In 1993, King's Dominion as well as its sister park Kings Island were acquired by Paramount under their new brand Paramount Parks. With the new management this brought, there was increased focus on retheming rides to various Paramount properties. This would eventually result in things like Tomb Raider the Ride, the Italian Job Turbo Coaster, and more. The same year that Paramount acquired King's Dominion, Smurf Mountain closed, along with the other attractions that it shared a structure with a year later. The mountain was sealed up, and Paramount Parks management turned their eyes to how the structure could tie into their films. The initial idea was to theme it to the film Congo. However, upon the film's release, it performed very poorly, and the idea was scrapped. After this, they would turn their ideas towards coasters. While many may consider the King's Parks to be what we often refer to as coaster farms, you have to understand that many such coaster farms subsist on setting records and pioneering first-of-their-kind rides and attractions. The year is now 1996, and just 2 years earlier, the Outer Limits Flight of Fear opened at Kings Island. Flight of Fear was the first coaster to use a launch element powered by a linear induction motor. The purpose of this was to launch the riders forward much more instantaneously than what older tire-powered launches could. Following the success of the coaster at Kings Island, Paramount brought in Intamin Rides to clone the coaster at King's Dominion in Virginia. At the same time, a new theme was proposed for the still conceptual mountain coaster. What if riders were going through a volcano, dodging lava and trying to escape the mountain? Intamin proposed a couple of different concepts for track design, which were tweaked and modified until 1997. In July of 1997, King's Dominion unveiled the name of their latest project, Volcano the Blast Coaster. The coaster was promised to be the first launch coaster to be inverted, that is to say, the cars sat below the track and your feet dangled in the air. It would, of course, use the linear induction launch that had served them so well. It also, for a time, took the record for the fastest inverted coaster, swiping the record upon opening from the only 1-year-old at the time Alpengeist in Busch Gardens, Williamsburg, only an hour or two away. The coaster opened to the public another year later in August of 1998. When people stepped up to the mountain, the difference was obvious. Gone was the peaceful mountain that once stood, and in its place a massive volcano with steel and fire shooting from its top. Stepping inside, it became even more clear that the mountain had been gutted of its insides to make way for the new coaster, thus meaning the end of the other rides that once shared the structure. The ride was intense, sending riders looping and rolling before they shot out of the top of the volcano itself with fire chasing them. Of course, anything this new and this elaborate was bound to have problems. The first and foremost came from the LIM launches themselves. While the technology is fairly reliable today as it's evolved, in its fledgling years, it had some hiccups, to say the least. This would often lead to trains not getting enough speed to clear an element of the coaster and rolling backwards. While the designers had noticed and accounted for this early on, it happened so frequently that the decision was made to not run the ride at full capacity for its entire first year. In spite of its issues, Volcano quickly became an icon for King's Dominion. It helped that you could easily see the massive mountain as you approached the park. Roller coaster enthusiasts loved the intense, one-of-a-kind experience completed by the combination of theming and intense coaster design. Volcano continued to thrill guests for a good many years. Over that time, modifications were made to keep the ride running smoothly. However, nothing lasts forever. In 2018, the coaster faced a number of technical issues that led to it being closed for the latter part of the season. While fans got their hopes up seeing the coaster completing test runs, it would remain closed. During the coaster's lifespan, Paramount had made the decision to get out of the theme park business, and all of the Paramount parks were sold to Cedar Fair, a company that was known for owning a number of regional amusement parks around the country. most notably Cedar Point in Ohio. In 2019, Cedar Fair executives made a decision. The coaster, being one of a kind as it was, had become too expensive to source replacement parts for it. And so the decision was made to close the ride, permanently, alongside the Crypt, a large spinning attraction that was formerly themed to Tomb Raider. The closure was announced in February of 2019. Before the start of the season, fans of the ride turned out in droves to show their love for this truly unique attraction. It didn't last, though, as by May that year, the entire mountain was quickly and not so quietly demolished, with the only remnant being a small section of the ride to be donated to the National Roller Coaster Museum. And now we reach the present day. With the park having been closed through the 2020 season due to the COVID-19 pandemic, it was only in 2021 that visitors returned to find an absence in the skyline of the park. With the closure of Volcano and the Crypt, work walls were raised and Safari Village is now a shadow of its former self, with very little foot space to account. Some decoration still sits near the wall that seems to call back to the Tomb Raider days of the Crypt, and if you look over the wall, you can see a thatched roof building and a stone archway with some carvings in it. Cedar Fair has been silent on whether there are plans for a replacement in the future, and with the financial losses caused by the 2020 pandemic, hopes are not high. Still, when riders pass the section of the park, they can't help but picture a mountain, with fire and steel erupting out of it. Thank you so much for watching. If this is your first time finding this channel, please drop down and like and subscribe. Check out some of my other videos. I started this series this year as a passion project, and I really enjoy doing it. But of course, with your support, it could become more than that. I can only hope. So again, like and subscribe if you haven't already, and keep looking for more episodes of park hopping in the future. This has been Jack, signing off.